Hello, welcome to this episode today. Shaun Brewster here. Actually, it's less of an episode and more of a sharing of an idea. I came across this idea recently on another podcast I was listening to, actually, about asking yourselves questions when you aren't quite sure what to do. And you might think to yourself, well, duh, that's what we do all the time, right? If you're not quite sure what to do, you ask yourself, what should I do? But how you frame the question actually really makes a difference to the sort of answer that you get and the quality of answers that you get from yourself. And I've been applying this myself and with some really good results recently. So the kind of questions you want to ask yourself is, what would such and such a person do in this situation? Now, this is a great way to remove yourself from the scenario and to be able to look at the scenario or the situation objectively. And again, these are probably things we've all done before. When you do it with the right intention, it actually does make a really big difference. And so I'll give you an example. So it might be a business decision. You might think to yourself, well, I don't quite know what to do. How to manage this person, how to, unravel this situation. And so the question might be, what would a great leader do in this situation? And if you just sit with that question and ponder it, it's amazing what comes out. Now, if you ask yourself, well, what should I do? What should I do? That's very different to asking yourself, what would a great leader do in this situation? Because you can step back and think, well, what great leaders have I seen? What great leaders do I know of? What would that person do in this situation? And suddenly and amazingly, these new ideas and new ways of viewing things can come to the forefront. It might also be something that you would apply in your own personal life. And again, I've done this to myself, where situations come up where you might be a little bit divided in the right direction to take. And you might ask yourself, what would a good father do in this situation? Or what would a good husband do in this situation? And while you might see yourself as a good father or a good husband, when you ask that question, it forces you to really look at the situation for what it is and to remove your own ego, your own biases, your own perceptions from the situation and go, well, what should I do if I want to be perceived as a good father, as a good husband, as a good whatever in the situation? I think that's been really useful for me in my personal life. And again, you can do it in any scenario, any situation. Now, the podcast I was listening to, this person was asking himself the question, what would 85-year-old me be proud of in this situation? I thought, what a great one that is. So you're presented with an opportunity, you're presented with a problem, a challenge to overcome, a situation to deal with. And then you could ask yourself, what would 85-year-old me be proud of in this situation? What decision would the 85-year-old me be proud of me making now? And what a great way to look at it, because the 85-year-old version of you is the person that's they've lived their life, they've watched the whole thing play out, and they can look back at the moments where you can look back at the moments where you made good decisions and go, yes, I'm proud of that. And maybe some of the ones where you made poor decisions go, no, I should have done it differently. And so if you can step out of your own situation in that moment and go, right, flash forward to 85, how many years, that's how many decades ahead is that? What accumulated wisdom would I be applying if I was to be proud of myself in this moment? What would I need to do right now to be able to make the 40-year-old or the 40 years from now version of me happy with the decision that I'm making now? And I think that's what a fantastic way of looking at things, because it adds a very long timeline to your decision-making process. So you don't think, well, I don't just want a short-term solution. I don't want a short-term gratification. I don't want a short-term outcome. I want something that I'm going to look back on in future decades and be glad that I made that decision. And it can be financial decisions. It can be interpersonal decisions, relationship decisions, business, communication, friendship, anything. Like you can go, what would a good friend do in this situation? What would a good whatever, right? And again, this might seem like a very obvious way of approaching problems, but if you think about it, it's really just about perspective. Rather than being stuck inside the problem and trying to find your way out, this gives you an opportunity to step outside of the problem and apply that accumulated wisdom of the 85-year-old me, of the good father, the good husband, the good friend, the good business associate, the good communicator, the good leader, whatever it might be. You can step out and see that person stepping in and solving this problem, and then use the strategies, use the ideas or the approaches that you believe that person would use. And I found this to be so valuable, and I really hope that you do, and I hope that you give this a try, and maybe let me know where you've used this, where it's worked, maybe where it hasn't. because maybe we can share some ideas and benefit each other with this over time. Because this podcast and all things like it that we do are really just about sharing ideas, sharing information to help everybody, to help us all do what we do even better. So I hope this has been helpful.